What is up and welcome back. In this video I have one of the coolest big packs of Tech Decks that Tech Deck has come out with in 25 years. It's the 25th anniversary pack. It comes with a bunch of different board shapes and different brands, all from the 90s, back when Tech Decks came out. And some of the most popular brands like World Industries, Flip, Blind, Toy Machine, Alien Workshop, Foundation Skateboards, Santa Cruz, and Element are all included in this pack. And the cool thing is every single one of these boards is also a different shape. So I'm going to go ahead and open them up and try them all out. Typically when Tech Deck does the bigger packs, they're all the same brand. So to have one big pack with a bunch of different brands and graphics in there is really cool. I also think it's really cool that all the boards included were from brands that have been around since the 90s, ever since Tech Decks came out back in 1998. From the front of the box, you can see that it comes with a big sticker sheet. And actually in the box, there are two big sticker sheets. And it's really cool to see a bunch of different brands and Tech Deck stickers all on one sticker sheet. And each of the decks are a different shape, starting off with the first one from 1998, old school skinny popsicle, moving up to the bigger popsicle shapes, and then kind of moving on to some different shapes, some cruiser boards, and a really cool Santa Cruz, as well as this Element board, really cool shape to them. The set also comes with a double-sided screwdriver, and lastly, a little chrome miniature minifigure. Super small, and it is chrome plated. Definitely lightweight plastic, but still pretty neat and super detailed little figure. With all the boards out and laying next to each other, it's a little bit easier to see the different board shapes, starting with the old school on the left, moving to some of the newer shapes, and some of the cruisers. And flipped over, you can see the shape as well. And all of these come with the classic sandpaper grip tape and white Tech Deck logo on them. The boards have definitely gotten wider over the years. And the first Tech Deck that came out measured about 25 millimeters, almost 26 millimeters wide. And this is an actual old school board from 1998. You can see the boards are pretty much the same width. However, the grip is a little bit skinnier on the newer board. And the trucks actually are a little bit wider on this new board, and they stick out a little bit more. While the old school original 1998 one, the trucks are pretty flush. But other than that, the size is pretty much the same. Moving on to the next size that Tech Deck went to, and I'm not sure when this came out, but it was in the early 2000s. And they moved to a little bit bigger, wider board, around 29 millimeters. And then in the last few years, they moved up to an even wider board that is 32 millimeters wide. And the older boards were also a little bit shorter, coming in at 96 millimeters versus the newer boards at 100 millimeters. The other big change that Tech Deck made over the years is adding a concave kind of angled edge on the newer boards. This makes it a little bit easier to do flip tricks like kick flips and heel flips. You can see on the older board it is pretty flat versus a lot higher concave on the newer boards. And even on some of these shape boards they have more concave. And then on most of the cruisers that are included in this pack, they're really flat. Especially this Alien Workshop board, super flat. And this board is kind of like a mixture where it's got the concave, but it's an old school board. This is definitely the flattest board in the whole pack, the Alien Workshop, and it's got the big cruiser wheels on there. It would be really cool to see if they had actual soft rubber wheels on here like cruisers, but they do have these big plastic wheels that are cool. And I also really like all the different color wheels that they went with the actual graphics. It seems to work really well with the boards. I really like this foundation board. I think the orange, white, and black is super clean. And I like the black wheels and the white bushings. They all kind of match. Unfortunately, these are all hard plastic white bushings, so it doesn't give a lot of give. But I'm going to go ahead and try the different boards out, see how they feel. And it definitely is pretty crazy to feel an old school board, or at least the size again. Definitely has a lot of ability to flip, and it's really easy to overflip these, but I was able to get a 360 flip, Next up is a little bit wider board, and it definitely has a lot more control to it. And I'm able to get my fingers on the board a little bit more, and the flip tricks don't seem to fly around as much. Able to do a few kick flips and get a good amount of control out of the board just as is. I'm actually really surprised how much I like the way this board feels, and I'm kind of curious to see what it'll feel like if I add some foam grip and maybe upgrade to some nicer bushings and maybe a little bit nicer wheels. Overall, I found this board to be a lot easier to use than the original Tech Deck, just because it's a little bit wider and easier to land tricks. Up next, I've got one of the newer popsicle styles, and this is the widest at 32 millimeters, and this is definitely one of the most easiest and more consistent boards that I've used. Pretty much feels like most of the fingerboards, however it doesn't have the bearings or foam grip, but other than that it does have a lot of control and consistency. And this is the most common shape that you'll find in the current single packs from Tech Deck. It's going to be this 32 millimeter wide board, and I believe they started to make this shape back in 2020. It might have been a little bit earlier or maybe a little bit later, but definitely has been for the past few years, and it's a pretty good shape and size. Out of all the boards, I found this shape the hardest to do kick flips, but I was able to at least get 1 or 2 in. And it's really good for doing tail slides. Not so good for no slides, but it's still pretty good compared to the other cruisers, just because it actually has a tail and a nose, versus some of the other cruisers have a super short nose. But another fun kind of board just to mess around with. Definitely not as consistent as the popsicle boards, but still kind of fun. And up next is this element board. I actually had a lot of fun with this. It's almost kind of like an almost twin kind of custom shape. Not really sure what to call the shape, but a lot of fun to do grinds on as well as flip tricks. And having a little bit of concave shape to these boards helps a lot with the flip tricks. Same with this toy machine. It has just kind of like a mild concave to the board. Just makes it a little bit more comfortable and easier to flip. This foundation board looks pretty cool. And trying to do some tricks on it, it is pretty hard. There's not a lot of room, and there's not really any kicks on this board. So to do any grind or anything, it'd be really spot on. And doing kick flips on here is pretty challenging as well. I was able to get a few at least variable kick flips and some random flips in. These boards are definitely not really made for doing tricks, but it's still a lot of fun to play around with them. And the last board included in the pack is this Alien Workshop. It almost has negative pop and negative kicks to it, negative concave, but super flat and kind of hard to do any tricks on it other than pop shove-its. Pretty much everything as far as kick flips and ollies are almost like rocket boards. However, I was able to do a pretty cool nollie heel. Overall, I definitely recommend this set. I think it's a really good variety of boards that you can get in one pack. And for the price, I was able to pick this up at Target for under $25. I think it's a really good price for the amount of variety. Let me know in the comments which board is your favorite and which one you want to see me upgrade first. And if you have any other questions or comments, let me know that as well. Until next time, peace.